Hello, Spookies, and welcome to Rick or Treat Horrorcast, hosted by yours, Ghoulie, Ricky J. Duarte. This week's guest is a horror aficionado and an absolute icon of the New York City drag scene. She's collaborated with the one and only Trauma on more than one occasion, having thrown parties for them at New York City's Beauty Bar and Rock Bar. She contributed an interview for the upcoming book Scream Queer, written by Spanish author Javier Parra, about LGBTQ representation in horror films. And just last week, she hosted the New York City premiere screening of Saint Drogo, the latest film by friends of the pod, Monster Makeup LLC. Now, she's also the co-host of my favorite horror trivia night at Rock Bar in the West Village. Please welcome to the show, Coma White.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
I have wanted you on the show for so long. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Of course, long-time listener, first-time guest.
Oh, God. First of many times, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
We ran into... our paths crossed over the years. I think it was Scruff, actually, honestly. Yeah. The first time we chatted, and I was like, who is this cute boy who knows more about horror than me? And then, we ended up finally meeting in person, running into each other at trivia night, I think, actually, at Rock Bar. And
I think so. It was either trivia night or it was, I think, Justin's birthday party.
Oh, it might have been Justin's birthday party. Justin Lockwood is, of course, your co-host at the wonderful...
for horror trivia, which actually we officially have an actual name right now.
Are you allowed to say it?
So we're going to call it Brain Damage.
Which is brilliant and so fitting because it ties into the film we're talking about today, actually.
I know. And it's exciting too, because we were calling it horror trivia for months, which is not like an actual name, but finally I was like, okay, let's make a name for it.
Well, it lets people know what's going to happen when they show up, for sure.
Exactly.
Brain Damage. I love it. I can't wait. The next one it's coming up, right?
Wednesday, January 17th.
So this is dropping the 12th. It'll be literally this Wednesday. If you're in New York City, amazing. Come say hi. Come see if you can stump me in horror trivia.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a bunch of really amazing sponsors this month. I know one of them is going to be Visual Vengeance. So I'm very excited about that.
So cool.
Yeah,
that's excellent. You always have great sponsors. You've had Fangoria, you've had Vinegar Syndrome, you've had, it's
Something Weird Video, Trauma. Yeah. Honestly, I'm so just incredibly honored and grateful to have the opportunity to have collaborated with them. And, it's literally like me or Justin just reaching out to these companies and being like, hey, can you give us free stuff? And they've all been so incredible. And I'm just mind blown that I've had the chance to work with these companies that I idolize.
There's so much generosity of spirit and apparently merchandise within the horror community.
Yeah,
for sure. And I would love to get to the point where you were working with Trauma, but why don't we start, if I can ask you a few questions about your kind of crossroads of drag and horror and where Coma White came from.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a horror fan since I was little, for as long as I can remember. I loved horror movies, and it was definitely something that was, I feel like, kind of passed down to me from my sister, because we would always watch movies together. She was always very into horror. She always had a bunch of VHS and stuff taped, and I have really great memories of us just going to the video store, like Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, and just renting stuff and having movie nights. So always been a horror fan. And when drag came around, I first discovered, I know, some people hate her, and she's controversial. But when I first discovered Sharon Needles, that was such a like a eye-opening
Yeah.
experience for me because growing up, I never had like openly queer people that I looked up to. The people I looked up to were like straight men that wore makeup. They were rock stars. But then here was this queen combining elements of metal and horror and punk. And it was just like, I didn't know you could do all of that. So she was always like a really big inspiration. And when I just started doing it, I was like, this is what I love. Let me see how I can combine the two.
And you did, and you're doing a fucking gorgeous job of it. You always put
Thank you.
together the best spooky looks, and you're just always inspired, and it's always thrilling to watch you grow.
Even when I wasn't doing like horror looks, I was always pulling element or grabbing inspiration from either horror or cult films or whatever it is, exploitation films. I was always pulling inspiration from something. So even if it wasn't a full-on horror look, it was inspired by, something that I'd probably seen in some obscure cult movie.
Totally. Well, and the horror and drag has really found it's finding this embrace. I mean, we have Dragula, which is a big deal. There are queens kind of popping up who are goth and spooky and scary. Where do you think that is coming from? What kind of a drag queen is also a horror queen?
I mean, I think like queer people in general just love horror movies in general. But yeah, I don't know. Like it definitely has had it's having queer horror is having its moment right now, which I love to see.
Totally.
Um so I think it's always been there, drag and queerness is how always had like punk and just punk elements and horror elements and well then I think right now it's just like, it's just really having a moment. So
Totally agreed, for sure. A lot of great queer storytellers are now able to tell their stories themselves through a queer lens. We're not just, the gay who gets killed first in a horror movie anymore.
yeah, I mean, all the queer representation in horror from like early on was always just really negative depictions.
Mm,
So it's really nice to see, queer people telling our stories.
absolutely. Well, talk to me about Trauma and how you got involved with them, because it's incredible to me.
I mean, so literally it was just because of through the horror trivia, I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, I'm doing a trivia event. Would you, be able to sponsor and send some prizes? And in true Trauma fashion, it was yeah, sure, you can come pick up the the prizes. We're not gonna ship it out to you. So I actually drove to Queens
Wow.
to the Trauma Studios and I picked them up and it was just incredible. And I got like a tour of, the building, and it is exactly what you think it is. It is a dusty, musty old office building and
Yeah.
just trauma memorabilia everywhere. And it was crazy. So they were actually filming something. Lloyd was filming I don't know, like a little video message or something. So he was already like outside and it was like, oh my God, I'm like walking like here's Lloyd Kaufman. I go upstairs and then it's like Michael Hurst was there as well, who is, an enigma.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever really sees him. And then I was just like, it was just incredible. And then um somebody that works for Trauma, Garrett, was like, oh, like, how would you feel about like doing other stuff with us? And it was literally like that. Trauma, they recruit the fans
Yeah.
to like work with them, and it's mainly because they're cheap. They don't want to pay anybody, but I say that with love. They know that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So it was literally the first day I'm there, just picking up stuff, and they're like, "Oh, how would you want to do something else with us and work with us?" And so then from that, I just ended up. I hosted a drag after party after their trauma dance. So that was back in September at Beauty Bar. And then I was like, how would you like to collaborate and do a Halloween show together? Because I already knew I had Halloween show lined up, and they were so open to it. And what's great about that was my guest was Donna Slash,
Yeah.
and she was the star of one of their movies, Kill Dolly Kill. So it was just like, it just made sense. She actually had reached out to me before I even had asked Trauma about collaborating on the Halloween party, and it made sense. I was like, Donna's coming, she's gonna be my guest. Let's make it a Trauma thing. And yeah, it was incredible. And what's crazy is that, so because Donna was a star of Kill Dolly Kill, she was doing a lot of appearances when they were showing the movie. So when she came to New York, she lives in Washington. She was actually staying with Lloyd Kaufman at his house.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she was sleeping there. And so then I dropped her off at Lloyd's house at like 3 in the morning. And she's like, oh, come in with me. And so I'm in Lloyd Kaufman's house at 3 in the morning on Halloween.
Oh my
He's
God.
fully awake, drinking a Diet Coke and watching TV. And he asked Donna if she wanted a drink. And I don't remember what she said. She was like, oh, yeah, make me this, whatever. And then he just comes back with the whole bottle, and he just gives it to her and leaves it in her room. And it was just like such a surreal moment being in his house.
That's
So yeah.
insane. That is so. I didn't know that had happened. I saw you on Halloween night, not to brag, but I did win the Halloween costume contest that night.
You did. You won. What did you win?
I won the vinyl soundtrack to War.
Oh, Trauma's War.
Trauma
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah. My listeners voted for my Halloween costume. Actually, it was Pearl, and
And you were incredible that night. Like
thank
you really
you.
turned it out.
Oh my, well, I turned to you to ask for wig and corset recommendations. So thanks for that.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, I celebrate you. I adore you. I love watching you and what you do and watching you perform and host. And it's just, I am a fan. I'm a big old Coma fan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, baby.
And I'm a fan of yours. I really enjoy the podcast. I do
Thank
listen.
you.
And actually, I tend to listen to it while I'm making trivia slides.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because like it takes a while to do them. So I put my headphones in, and I'm listening to your podcast.
That's great. Your slides are always beautiful. So
Thank
well
you.
done. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I love to make recommendations with my guests about recent horror that we have consumed. So films or books, music, video games, anything. Coma, what have you been into lately?
Let me pull up my letterbox because I don't remember.
Ah!
You know what? I've actually, after like Halloween and all that, I was just like consuming so much horror. I was like, I kind of need a break, which is probably not what I should be recommending right now. But I was just like, I go through weird phases with movies. So I was in a 90s thriller mood.
Great.
Like it's so specific.
Yeah. No, I love a good 90s
No, once I went through a like a Jennifer Lopez, like it was a weird specific thing. So I've been watching a lot of 90s thrillers. So ones that I saw that I really enjoyed, 8mm with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Which it's sleazy too, and I like that.
We love a good sleaze.
I do. And that one was really good. Eye for an Eye.
With Sally Field.
Yes.
Oh, and Kiefer Sutherland. Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Me and my mom watched it on, I think, Thanksgiving. Not a family movie, but you know, that one's great. I've always loved that movie.
Yeah. I forgot about it.
Oh, it's so good. And then I'm trying to see like what else. I haven't really watched any like new movies. I just haven't really had time. Though I think the last new movie I saw was Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Which I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah, I had fun. I didn't know what to expect, and I
knew exactly the type of movie it was.
Yeah.
And I just had fun with it. It was camp and all the above.
They've announced a sequel. I don't know if I need a sequel, but I'm not mad that there's going to be a sequel.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like, I don't think it's like this was great. Let's not turn it into like a franchise.
A
Like,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah. Well, too late.
yeah. Unless he does like another like holiday instead, that could be interesting.
Well, I know Founders Day is coming up. That's not Eli Roth, but
What
it
does
is a
Founders say?
exactly right.
We have a next Flag Day, like
Probably,
Jesus.
maybe. So I finally got to see Godzilla minus one on my last episode. I said I was going to see it, and then I did, and it is everything that people are saying it is. And I just feel like proud of this little film that's really taken over the box office, and I think put Godzilla back on a track we can be excited for. Like these American kind of monster universe Godzilla films are just not good.
I've never been into like Godzilla. I think I saw the Matthew Broderick one when it came out.
It's not Godzilla. I will defend
Wait,
that
what
as
is
a
that?
monster movie. It is
Okay.
Godzilla, but
Okay.
it's not Godzilla. It's a giant iguana crawling around New York City. I will defend that as a monster movie. And if they
Okay.
didn't call it Godzilla, I think it would be a very watchable film.
Yeah.
They fucked up by calling it Godzilla.
I've never seen any other Godzilla movie. I didn't even know they made a new Godzilla one until recently because my
Okay.
coworkers were talking about it. But I've been hearing good things about it, so maybe I should give it a try.
Yeah, it's a recommend for sure. For sure. Not a horror film, but I am obsessed right now with All of Us Strangers. It bumped Saltburn was my favorite film of the year, and then All of Us Strangers knocked it out literally like 2 days ago. I can't stop thinking about it. It's borderline genre, so I'm gonna talk about a
Okay.
little bit, but like gorgeous gay story about loneliness and seeking kind of I don't know, pathos and like processing your pain. I cried for I had to go to Central Park and sit alone and cry for like 45 minutes. I couldn't stop. uh so
Nice.
that I recommend that. And then
Okay.
I'm going to brag on myself for a minute because I am in this month's issue of Rue Morgue magazine
Ooh,
in
amazing.
print. It's issue number 216. I was able to interview Diablo Cody and
Oh
Zelda
my God.
Williams. I know about their upcoming film Lisa Frankenstein. It's releasing on Valentine's Day. It's this great. They're classifying it as a zom rom com, and I am pushing for this movie.
Wait, did you see it?
I got to see it. Yeah, I went to a screening before I
And
interviewed them.
was it good?
It is good. Yeah,
Okay.
it's fun. It's very like, Diablo's kind of wit and smart ass way of writing. It's
Yeah.
terrific and a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how it does and people's reactions to it. This article started as like a half page and then it became a full page. And then by the time I submitted it, I thought they would cut it down to three. I submitted 6 pages
Oh my God.
of this
You really
article.
liked it.
I thought, well, because it was an interview, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought it would be 3 pages max. And then it turns out it's 5 pages. And the featured image on the index page, and it's mentioned on the cover. Like, this is a big deal for me, and I'm
That's
very
incredible.
excited.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm
I'm
really
so happy for
grateful.
you. That is
The
such a big deal.
the
Like,
cool thing is that I talked to Diablo about Jennifer's body and how
I was gonna ask you about
yes, yeah. So, the fact that now the film is embraced and celebrated and people are excited about it. And we got to talk about that. And my editor pulled all of that out and made a sidebar piece where it's
Oh,
like, yeah, so it's like Diablo talks Jennifer's body, and so it's interesting and exciting to get to see her talk about her reaction to this film 14 years later.
yeah, I love to see it's having a moment and it had this resurgence. Like, and I feel like that's just how cult movies are
Yeah,
born. It's
yeah.
like it was like really panned and just like not it did not do well when it came out, and it took so much time for like people to just really kind of come around to it. And I really love that people are embracing it as this like queer horror movie that really that's what it is. Like,
Yeah, I think looking at it through a post Me Too lens has been really interesting for people as well. So I went to Forbidden Planet, the comic book shop, and
yeah.
picked up a copy of the magazine. I was just sitting on a shelf. I passed by. There's another magazine shop in Chelsea. I passed by and popped in, and I bought 2 copies. And it's just I'm very excited. So
That's incredible.
yeah. Hopefully, the
um
first of many times I'm in print.
my only disappointment with Jennifer's Body is like I love the song Violet, but I think they should have used the song Jennifer's Body.
Very surprised that they did not. Yeah, because the credits is another whole song. It's just not.
Violet, yeah, which is like my favorite whole song, but I'm like, why not put Jennifer's Body in it? Like, missed
Yeah,
opportunity.
big missed
Um,
opportunity. But
did you get to ask Diablo about? I know it's not relevant, but about Madonna.
no, I didn't dare. I didn't dare, but not to spoil the end of my article, but I did ask her if we're going to have to wait 14 more years for another horror screenplay from her. And she said no, she's already working on another horror film.
That's incredible.
Yeah, she said it's actually like a legit scary film, and probably less
It's
funny.
about
So
her time working with
with
Madonna.
Madonna. I want a movie about Diablo and Madonna.
Oh, actually, that I would
I don't
see that
care
as well.
about the Madonna biopic. I want to know what happened between her and Diablo.
Oh, I know.
Oh God. All right. Well, hey, what we gathered to talk about a specific film this week. What do you say we go Rick or treating?
Let's do it.
Today we are discussing the 1982 cult classic exploitation sensation masterpiece Basket Case. Coma, you selected this off of the list. Why were you drawn to this film?
So when people ask me what my favorite horror movie is, I usually say this one.
Nice.
Um, I just I think it checks all the boxes for me. It's campy, it's sleazy, it's trashy, it's bloody. Like it's everything. And I have such an obsession with like New York City in like the 70s and the 80s, and it was just so trashy and vile and disgusting. And this movie just oozes all of that. It
Yes.
is such a New York movie. And yeah, it's so good.
All of that and more. It is very much a set in New York film, and I love, uh, the toward the beginning when he's walking 42nd Street. So I used to live on 42nd and 8th. I was across from Port Authority for 7 years, and so like that was my block, and I love seeing. Him just walking past the porn stores and the peep shows. I'm actually about to reread Times Square Red, Times Square Blue. Have you read that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Samuel Delaney.
Oh, so good. Yeah, hell of a book. And yeah, it's what is your relationship to this film? When is the first time you saw it?
So I first saw this movie. I was in high school, and I had heard about it, but I hadn't seen it. And back then it was a little bit maybe harder for me to find movies because I was afraid to shop online
Yeah.
because I was
Okay.
paranoid about putting my credit card in. And um so I mean, I would like find stuff at like used record stores and whatever, but like I remember this was around the time Hollywood Video was going out of business, and my sister had actually bought it from Hollywood Video in the Bronx where she was living at the time. And I think she paid, I don't know, I want to say like a quarter or 50 cents. Like this was literally when it was like they were giving stuff
Done.
away. And she did not like it.
Sure.
It didn't do it for her. She thought it was like the worst thing she had ever seen. So she gave it to me and I watched it and I just like fell in love with it. And it was just, I just like immediately loved it so much.
Yeah. I think so. The first time I saw it, I lived in New York City. I was living in Washington Heights at the time. I don't remember if I owned this on DVD or if remember on Netflix when they would send you DVDs to watch.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like that's how I saw it. Maybe I owned it. I watched it by myself, and then I made my roommates watch it as well. I was obsessed, and they were appalled. And that was it for me. I have seen the sequels. I have not seen them in many many years, and I don't really remember them. There's two more
Yeah,
of them.
I don't really care for them that much. I haven't seen them in a while either.
I think they lean more into the comedy
They do, and
than they should.
Exactly. And I think that's why it doesn't resonate as much with me. And
Yeah.
like I said, I love camp and horror and mixing those two, but like I don't know, it's not really what I want from like a basket case movie.
Well, here's my thing with camp. When you try to make camp, it's not camp, you know,
Exactly.
and Basket Case qualifies as camp because this film is so earnest. Like they don't know the level of humor. I think that they're not going for the jokes in this film. The jokes are just happening, you know, as you watch it.
I mean, I know Frank Henenlotter when he made it, like I know he said that he kind of leaned a little bit more into the comedy once he didn't really have the budget to make the movie that he had written
Right.
originally. So like there's always been comedy elements, but I think it just like you said, it's like unintentionally funny, you know, the acting and the bad wigs and just
Oh, the wigs.
you know the crude effects, like it all adds to it, and it's like I think that's what makes it special, you know, there's a
Yeah.
crudeness to it. And then when you get to the sequels, they're a little bit more glossy.
They're self-aware by that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's bigger budget and just it's glossier, and it loses that sleaze
Yeah.
that the original just oozes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, you mentioned it's written and directed by Frank Henenlotter, who this was his first film, and he would go on to make Frankenhooker and Brain Damage, which I'm dying to do on the show. I fucking love that movie. And he did make the sequels as well. He had such a bizarre career. I think he only make like 6 films.
I think something like that.
Yeah.
I think his last one was Bad Biology, which was in like 2009, I
I
want to
have not
say.
seen that one, but I have not heard good things.
Yeah, it's not great.
uh,
I knew it too.
our cinematographer is Bruce Torbett, who would work with him again on Frankenhooker and Brain Damage. And then original score, I just want to bring up is Gus Russo. And I only bring it up because it's a very weird score that is doesn't seem it's from a different movie. Like it's not this it doesn't feel like the movie that we're watching, and it's not used very often in the film. Most of it is unscored, but I wanted to bring that up. And I will say, if you watch the end credits of this film, the majority of the names and positions are completely made up. They only had a
Yeah,
crew of like 5 people, so in order to like lengthen the credits and make this movie look more legit, they just padded it with fake names and fake jobs, which I think is hysterical.
that's camp.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. We'll go through the cast really quick. As Dwayne, we have Kevin Van Hentenryck. Sherry is played by Terry Susan Smith. Casey is Beverly Bonner. She would go on to be in all the rest of Frank's films as well. He kind of fell in love with what she did in this movie. I fell in love with what she did in this movie. The hotel manager is Robert Vogel. We love him. And then we have our 3 doctors: Dr. Cutter, Diane Brown, Dr. Needleman, Lloyd Pace, and Dr. Lifflander, Bill Freeman.
You know, another reason why I chose this movie is because I feel like there's just so much queerness to it.
Mm.
And you know, there's so much like underlying queerness that it's like when you go back and rewatch it with a queer lens, it makes so much sense. And I know that there's a lot of scenes where they like filmed in like a gay bar. I know there's like the scene where Dwayne and Beverly Bonner, they're in when they discuss like what's in the basket, that
Yeah.
was in a gay bar. Of
Hellfire
course.
Club. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, I think I forget his name. I think his name's Joe. He was one of the tenants with the Irish accent.
Yeah.
He was like an owner or manager of gay bars as well. Beverly Bonner starred in Women Behind Bars, the play with Divine.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
which is actually how Frank met her. Um, yeah, so other than that, like I mean, there's all that, but there's it's just the story itself, which we will get into.
For sure. I love knowing that tangentially the production side has these queer connections. And I had never looked at this film with a queer read until you brought that up when we decided to talk about this movie. So going back to watch it again, It was really fascinating to me, and I'm excited to talk about it as we go along. This podcast started as a strictly queer horror podcast, and then I found myself imposing queer reads where they really didn't belong, and so now it's kind of a podcast that happens to also be queer. But
And I love that. Yeah.
I love when I get to let's go full force on this queer read of Basket Case for sure, because I definitely think it's there.
It 100% is. So I never really saw it as like a queer movie. I don't think anybody does, but it's like when you like really kind of analyze it, you're like, wait, like this and this, and we will get into it.
Yeah, we will. We will. Made on a budget of $35,000. Now, I also read 15,000, which feels more accurate to me, but the multiple sources were showing me 35,000. Do you know the solid answer to that?
I believe it is 35. Because they had originally put up, I know Frank had put up like $8,000
Mm-hmm.
of his own money, and then the producer put up like another eight, and then they were just like selling it, like, push around to like investors and whatever. So eventually over time they reached the 35.
Got it. Yeah, I read that they would film some of it, show investors, get a little more money, and then that's how they were able to film more of the movie.
Which this movie actually took a year to
That's
make.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild. Shot on 16 millimeter, blown up to 35 millimeter upon release. So here's my thing about this. I had not seen this movie in about a decade, maybe a little longer. And so since then, it was preserved in the Museum of Modern Motherfucking Art.
Which is insane.
Insane to me. They did a remastered version, so I had never actually seen this remastered version before. So that was exciting to see, see it a little more crisp, a little more clear. I don't always love that. I really do oftentimes prefer the grainy, darker versions of
I
films.
do too, but when it's right, it's right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and this one definitely looks stunning. And that's the thing too, like, because I do collect a lot of movies, I have a lot of physical media, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, I don't need to upgrade that. And then like sometimes I do, I specifically remember buying the Criterion of Carnival of Souls, and that was just like gorgeous, stunning, like a completely new movie.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. It's great when you get to watch it and feel like you're seeing things for the first time.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get into the plot of this film? Let's do it.
Yeah,
So it starts with our title card, Basket Case, a little drop of blood, and then we see this pretty nice house. It kind of looks like the Myers house from Halloween.
I can see that. Yeah.
Reminded me of that. Now, a doctor walks out of the house. It's nighttime. He's holding a file in his hand, a file of papers, and he hears noises and rustling in the surrounding trees and bushes all around him. So he goes back inside and he calls the police. He introduces himself as Dr. Lifflander. He says there's someone outside and hears rustling and crawling around in the ceiling of his home, and then the phone goes dead. So he runs and starts locking doors and windows. And then a shadow opens the breaker box and turns off the circuit breaker, which is ridiculous to me. It's literally like filmed as though the shadow is what's doing it.
Yeah.
And he screams, "Oh God, no, 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 no." And then he starts threatening that he has a gun and he'll shoot. And I didn't expect him to actually pull out a fucking gun and start shooting.
What's funny about this movie too, like after rewatching it, like the acting of everybody, I feel like
Oh,
they're just acting out into space.
yes.
Like literally everybody is just like, who are you talking to? Like literally shouting in
Completely.
the air. But that's the charm of it.
It really is. I was starting to write down these insane dialogues and monologues that people have, and then I realized no, every character has one. I can't write down every line of this movie.
There's so many scenes where they're just like literally acting out. There's one scene that I love actually. We'll get to it later when Terry just screams in the stairwell
Yeah,
for no reason.
yeah, yeah. He so he's in the dark. He's shooting. He shoots out all of his rounds, and then a deformed claw reaches up and tears at his face, and there is blood squirt on the file and on his gun. And it really just looks like this clawed hand had blood on it and then started tapping his face with it. And then we cut to Times Square and our movie gets going. And again, like I mentioned, it's that authentic looking and authentic feeling Times Square because that's exactly where they filmed it without permits. They were just walking around with a camera.
Oh yeah, they did. Frank never used permits. He just did it and lied.
Who has time? Who has time for that? By the time they got what they wanted, they assumed that they would be gone, and then no one would have a problem with it. Dwayne Bradley, we meet him. He's carrying a basket, like a kind of proper picnic basket, the size of maybe like a laundry basket, made of wicker. And he's passing by these porn theaters and peep shows and drug dealers. I love this drug dealer who has like a minute and a half long list of everything that he has to offer. He's got everything in his pockets. Now he approaches the Hotel Broslin. There's a red neon sign outside and he gets a room. So this was down around Tribeca, where they filmed
Franklin Street.
Yes, this. And it's sketchy as fuck. It's a filthy building. And it's the kind of like there's just a guy behind a tiny counter in a door running it. And
that's exactly what it was, because that lobby didn't exist.
So they added it.
No, it was elevator shaft that was opened up. They kept the doors open of the elevator shaft, and they just put like a little desk in there.
That's hilarious.
So that lobby, that's what that is. And the Hotel Broslin obviously doesn't exist.
Right.
It's just a sign that they had hung up. And they would just switch locations. So the interiors were, I think it was actually Kevin Van Hederick's actual apartment or something like that.
That's hysterical. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that. It's a flop house for sure. Sketchy, just allegedly a block away from Times Square. He gets a room. He's asked for how long, a couple hours, a couple years. And he says he's all alone. He's by himself. It's $20 a night and you have to pay in advance. No junkies, because this is a respectable hotel. He's asked by a drunk what's in the basket, and he says clothes, and he is taken to room 7. It's on the 3rd floor. Dwayne pulls a massive wad of cash and pays for it. Now, the director, Frank, joked that this was the entire movie's budget just on hand. It's fun fact, you're actually not allowed to film money like tendered, like government bills, like real ones. You're supposed to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're supposed to use fake ones on film.
Why?
I have no fucking idea. But of course, this was actual real cash.
Yeah.
And a drunk notices this cash. Mr. O'Doherty, I think it's O'Donnelly is his name. And kind of tucks that away in his little back pocket of his mind. He tells the manager, the hotel manager, "Did you see that? He's loaded." And the manager says, "Yeah, so are you." So Dwayne walks upstairs. He's accosted by this woman named Josephine. She won't leave him alone. Tells this crazy story about an old lady who used to live in his unit, and she told everyone she was rich. And then she just goes on and on and on. It's one of the monologues I wish I could recite for you, but
and then she does that whole monologue, and then she turns around and goes back downstairs for no reason.
So abruptly. Like it's like done.
That's what I'm saying. Like everybody's acting out into space.
Yeah.
And, bad wigs all around.
Oh my God.
Mama.
Well, Sharon's wig is a character unto itself. I can't wait. So he finds his room and he goes in, sets down the basket on the bed, and he tells it, "We're here." He's talking to the basket. He leaves for food and he comes back with a couple bags of greasy burgers and unlocks the padlock on this basket and starts dropping the meat from the burgers inside. And we hear these gross, over-the-top munching sounds. I love Dwayne wipes the grease onto the bed and just goes about his business. Pulls out the bloody folder that we saw earlier, and we see that it's full of medical files, and he sees the names of 2 doctors, Dr. Needleman and Dr. Cutter. And these names are so specific to these doctors' jobs. Needleman, anesthesiologist, and Cutter, surgeon. He
I
opens a
didn't even pick up on that.
yeah. He opens a phone book and he's looking for the names, but he finds Needleman. Cutter is not listed. Now, he wakes up in the middle of the night and he asks an unseen character, presumably whomever is in the basket, if he's going to pace the floor all night. And they have this like, he can hear this character's voice in his head and he speaks out loud to it, but we cannot hear what this character is saying. I'm just going to say the character's name is Belial. What is in the basket is called Belial, and we'll talk about that a little later. The next day, the drunk is caught peeking into Dwayne's keyhole by a neighbor slash prostitute named Casey, who I fucking love,
Oh,
dude.
she's fantastic.
She's so good. She, in 2015, did a stage play called Casey 30 Years Later, which was about what happened to her character.
I know she used to have like a little public access TV show too,
Are you
like
kidding?
way back in the day. Yeah.
Oh, she's
And
fantastic.
I wasn't sure if she was like a prostitute or not. I mean, it's pretty obvious she is, but in the credits, one of the guys listed as
Casey's John.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, is she just having a guy over? Or
That's what I was thinking, but no,
yeah, nope. She's
good for her.
got to pay those bills, you know? So Casey, we instantly love her. She chases the drunk away, knocks on Dwayne's door, and tells him, if you got anything of value in there, like money, don't leave it around. Asks Dwayne where he's from. He says upstate, Glens Falls. It's his first time in the city. And she says, hey, let's grab a drink sometime. And then she leaves.
She's just like, bye.
Bye. Everyone leaves. People come and go so
Abruptly.
quickly here. Dwayne puts a map of the city in his pocket, grabs the basket, and he says, come on, we've got to pay a little visit to a doctor friend of ours. Now he gets to Dr. Needleman's office. It's janky as fuck, obviously not filmed in a real doctor's office.
So this was actually filmed, and Frank Henenlotter, he used to be working like advertising.
Okay.
And this was the back of the building. And there was like, it was empty. There was like nobody there. So they were just like, this is going to be the doctor's office.
It's brilliant. I read they were pulling furniture off the street and out of dumpsters to try to furnish the sets in this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
He meets the receptionist. Her name is Sharon. She mistakes him for a typewriter repairman, and she does this ridiculous impression of the sound that her broken typewriter is making.
Yeah, I hate that.
Oh, it's so cringy.
It is. The mouse noises.
Her performance is so bipolar. Not to belittle the bipolar lived experience, but it's just, it makes there's no continuity whatsoever to her moods in this film.
Oh no. And what's funny too, as you can see, she's wearing a bad hard front wig, and that's because she used to be in a punk band, so her head was shaved.
That's amazing.
So they had to put a wig on her.
I wish they had just let her be bald, but instead we get this atrocity.
The bad wigs, it makes it, like it's a full hard front, like
yeah. I mean, not even trying to hide the fact that it's a wig. It's just a fucking wig.
And
it's
then
it's too much hair, you know?
She would ask them, she'd be like, does it look like a wig? And they'd be like, no.
Oh no, they're lying to her just to get her through it. That's hilarious. He says he's here to see the doctor, tells her he's an old friend of the family and would like to see him even though he doesn't have an appointment. So she pencils him in and asks his name, and he blows his cover instantly. He says, I'm Dwayne Bradley, but like, don't write that. He'd recognize that name. Put down Dwayne Smith.
Oh, he's a million laughs. He'll love this.
She asks him what's in the basket, Easter eggs, and he doesn't respond. And she's taken an interest in him. She's starting to get flirty. Is it your first time in New York? Have you gone to the Statue of Liberty? And she starts listing all of these landmarks, and he goes, no, I haven't had the time. And she like takes offense.
I know.
You haven't had the time. Really bizarre mood swing there.
It's so unprofessional too. Like, you're hitting on a client.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Mary, get a grip. Like,
yeah, have you had time for those? And eventually she ends up offering to be his tour guide. I'll even buy you some 3D postcards and an I Love New York t-shirt. So Dwayne sees the doctor and introduces himself as Mr. Smith and tells him he has a pain in his chest or in his side, and takes off his shirt to show the doctor. And we are it reveals a massive, hideous scar that down the right side of his body. I gotta say, it's not the worst makeup effect.
It's not, but they literally just like threw everything on Kevin, and then
Everything they had in their kit.
he had like a really bad allergic reaction to it for like days. His skin was like raw after it.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
It probably looked more like a scar than the appliance did.
probably.
Oh, that poor guy. That's in like a tender area too.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all that we get from this scene. Apparently, there was more dialogue that got cut because it was killing the pace of the film, but that's all we get from him and Dr. Needleman. On his way out, Sharon just flat out asks him on a date and says, she gets off at 7, and Dwayne walks across the room, sets his basket down on the other side, and then comes back and whispers to her if he can call her tomorrow. And they agree to meet, but she says, "Why are we whispering?" And his response is, "I don't want him to hear." Who, the doctor? But he's talking about whatever or whomever is in the basket across the room. Now, meanwhile, Dr. Needleman looks through his Rolodex and calls Dr. Lifflander, the doctor that we saw get killed at the beginning of the movie. Dwayne goes to a movie and he's watching a martial arts film in this really sketchy little movie house somewhere in Times Square.
This was actually in Queens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually a movie, an actual really sketchy, sleazy movie theater in Queens. And I know that it was like an adult theater. And they
Sure.
would also show like gay porn as well.
Yeah, it looks like it. Without a doubt. There is I don't know, a hooligan or like a ruffian that notices Dwayne. And Dwayne starts to doze off. And this thief grabs the basket and runs for the bathroom, breaks the padlock off of it and opens it and starts screaming. And then Dwayne wakes up, hears the screaming, runs to the bathroom. The thief runs out with a bloody face. Dwayne goes to the basket, opens it, and says,
Not
not
now.
now. Not
Save
yet.
it.
Save it. Dr. Needleman cannot get a hold of Dr. Lifflander, so he calls Dr. Cutter, who's on a dinner date with a handsome young feller in her apartment. This actress is like the knockoff version of Sigourney Weaver.
Oh my God, literally, that's all I see when I see her.
Genuinely, like, can't like if Sigourney Weaver were a terrible actor,
And
had
had
one
a bad
facial
wig.
expression, and it had a bad wig, but even her pattern of speech, like her voice kind of sounds like Sigourney
She
Weaver.
does.
It's
I
alarming.
always thought it was like me. I'm like, am I imagining this? But
Right.
no, that's like Sigourney
No,
Weaver down.
it absolutely is. She's flirty with this young man. She tells him, "I like you drunk. You're cute when you slobber." Fucking weird. The phone rings and shit instantly. She answers it and it's Needleman, and he's telling her Lifflander has died a few days ago, and today he was visited by a young man with a scar down his side. Cutter tells him calm down and infers that neither of us know anyone named Dr. Lifflander. Neither of us know who this young man from Glens Falls is because we've never been to Glens Falls. And one of us just wants to get back to dinner. So she hangs up on him, returns to her date. She says, "Sorry about that, Cuddles. Now, where were we?" You know what? I love that she's getting some.
I do, and she's like just aggressive. Well, you know what? I was gonna say she's aggressive. Maybe not. She knows what she wants, and she's gonna get it. So good for her.
And I gotta say, seeing in 1982, I think seeing a female doctor, and B, seeing a female doctor who like gets what she wants.
An older female doctor with some
Yes.
young trade. Good
Yep.
for you.
Good honor. Um, Dwayne comes back to the office at night when Sharon's getting off. He ducks out of sight as she leaves. She's locked the door to the office, and Needleman has been left alone. Now, Dwayne approaches this locked door after Sharon walks away and lets the contents of the basket out, telling him to be quick and to grab the Rolodex on the way out. We get this POV shot moving toward the office door. But here's the thing. There's no like transition from cover of the basket getting dumped into POV. It's just the shot moves from basket being dumped and then becomes POV in the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It took me right out of the picture. Moves toward the office door, and then the clawed hand reaches for the handle. Now, Needleman in his office hears a crash from the other room and reluctantly goes to investigate. Discovers that the door has been ripped off its hinges, but it really just looks like they took it off its hinges and set it on its side.
And that's exactly what they did, and it took them forever to actually do that.
I bet.
Then they never put it back on.
He pushes so he runs back to his office. He closes the door behind him, and then he pushes his desk in front of the door, but it's an outward opening door. So putting your desk in front of it does absolutely no good. The lights turn off. And then when he walks across the room to turn the light back on, we see Belial for the first time. Coma, would you describe Belial's appearance, please?
I feel like he has so many different appearances. Like, it's like this first scene where we see him, it's like weird, like almost like a human face. So it's supposed to be like Kevin Van Hederick's face,
which doesn't read.
No, not at all.
I didn't even know that until I read that he did a face cast for this.
It looks absolutely nothing like him, but that's what it was supposed to be, and it's just we get that like weird first glimpse, and then I feel like as the movie progresses, he just becomes like more deformed looking.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how many of these puppets they created. He's basically like, if you cut the muffin top off of a muffin, that is the shape of this creature with two deformed arms, one longer than the other. They each have like 4 fingers with claws on them. He's just like a lumpy, massy, gross, I don't know, mass of flesh.
That's really just like lumpy mass.
Yeah, with a flat bottom, completely flat bottom.
Yeah.
What I love is each of these puppets, you can clearly see the seam from the mold, the latex mold that they made. You can see the seam clearly going down the sides of this, like no attempt to hide it whatsoever. All right, so Needleman screams and Belial attacks. And it's just when Belial attacks someone, it's really just somebody holding this puppet against their body as they writhe and scream and roll around. And it's a real treat to watch. Needleman flings about his office with Belial attached to his face. There's too much blood all over the place. Belial reaches toward his guts and blood sprays everywhere. And then we see that he has been ripped in half.
Well, you know what? When you don't have a budget, you just throw blood around.
It works. It works.
Yeah.
So Belial returns to Dwayne with the Rolodex, who puts him back into the basket and runs away. We cut to the next morning. It's at the hotel. Dwayne comes in with a big cardboard box and a packet of a packet of hot dogs for breakfast. And I'm not anti-hot dog, but these look disgusting in their plastic wrapper. And he's just plopping them one by one into the basket, and we hear Belial eating them. It's fucking disgusting. He unboxes a TV and explains that there's no reason, Belial, for you to come with me today. I'm just gonna go scope out the doctor's office, Dr. Cutter, and I'll be home. And I got you this TV. You should just stay home and watch TV and relax. And if you get bored with TV, I brought you a newspaper. Okay, bye. Leaves the TV on the dresser on like scramble. He doesn't even tune it. He doesn't even tune the antenna or anything. And Belial's not happy with this. Belial reaches over and just rips the channel dial off of the television. Meanwhile, Dwayne runs to Sharon's apartment and they head out on their date. And because they couldn't actually film at the Statue of Liberty, in the Statue of Liberty, we just see them come out of the Statue of Liberty and talk about what they did inside. Like, oh, wasn't that great? Oh, it was so beautiful. They again did not have a permit to film at the base of the Statue of Liberty, but they did it anyway. Now, they each confessed to each other that they only went sightseeing so that they could see the other. She didn't want to see the sights. He didn't want to see the sights. And she tells him, I know an awful lot of guys like you, Dwayne, but you're different. And they start kissing, and it is the worst kiss ever. Dwayne opens his mouth like a snake and just swallows her face. He sucks on her lips. It's weird. It's too much. I can't tell if it's because it's the character's first kiss ever or if it's because it's Kevin, the actor's just a really bad kisser.
I think both.
Maybe
Probably.
both. I gotta say, Kevin is a cutie, and I'm really jealous of his gorgeous giant head, like of curly hair
I
as a
don't
bald.
like the hair. I
As a
really.
bald, I think a better style, would work for me. But just the quality of those curls is I'm
And he
envious.
still has that haircut.
Does he?
He
Good.
does.
Good for him. Now, meanwhile, back at the hotel, Belial has a fucking conniption fit in the hotel room. I I had to turn my TV down because of how loud and how long Belial screams in this sequence, which is the voice of Kevin providing the screaming voice of Belial. He knocks the TV off the dresser and he breaks a lamp, and the neighbors start to take notice and gather outside the door. We get our very famous stop motion sequences as well. When Belial has to move independently around the room instead of a puppet, it's stop motion.
And it's so crude.
It's so crude. That's the word.
And but that's what's so great about it. It's like it is just and I think Frank Henlotter did that himself, the animation.
So here's the thing is like it's very easy to make fun of, and the it's jarring when they go from puppetry to the animation back to puppetry in the cuts. But like I have to applaud the effort. And frankly, for people who, probably are not stop motion animators professionally, I have to applaud the outcome too.
No, it's great. I mean, I but that's what I said. Like it is crude, but like I love that about it. Like it
Yes.
gives it that like just that quality. Like if it was done well, it wouldn't be as,
No, no, for sure. And it gives a little bit of kinetic, I don't know, kinetic energy, or it's just being able to see Belial move independently brings him to life a little bit more, even if it's very clear how it's done.
yes.
So the hotel manager runs upstairs, Belial's slamming the bed up and down on the ground. Then he hides back in the basket just as the hotel manager unlocks the door. The neighbors spill in and they discover the apartment slash hotel room in fucking shambles. And the drunk O'Donnelly notices Dwayne's wad of cash just sitting there. The manager kicks everybody out. The drunk pretends to head to his room, but then comes back with a coat hanger, picks the lock, and steals the cash. Starts rummaging around the room for more stuff to swipe, and he opens the basket, and Belial jumps out and clings to his face. Dwayne feels this happen like psychically while he's grossly kissing Sharon at the Statue of Liberty. Belial claws the man's face, which is really just him rubbing blood on it. And Dwayne runs away from Sharon. He like drops her on the ground. Poor fucking Sharon gets like the shit beaten out of her in this movie.
I know he treats her like shit and she still goes running back to him all the
At a
time. Like,
point, she even says, like, I don't even know why the way that you treated me the other day.
exactly, like girl,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you? But I think when you first start seeing the queer elements, it's
Okay.
like he's making out with this girl and then Belial's stopping him from that.
Oh shit.
You know? It's
Oh
like
yeah.
he can't, like
For sure.
that. I think that's when it starts really kind of the
Yep.
queerness, really. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's brilliant. I didn't even pick up on that, but that's a great note.
yeah.
Really great note. Now the neighbors hear the screaming, and they find the man. Somehow they got into the man's apartment with Belial attached to his face, clawing him. Um, and I do like the scratch marks. I like the makeup
Those look
effect.
good.
They
Yeah.
look real good for sure. The trail of bloody handprints leads to the window, out the open window. Dwayne arrives at the hotel while the manager is trying to calm everybody down in the lobby. Now, Sharon has followed him and he grabs her and, like pro wrestler, slams her against the door and is like, no, you can't be here or he'll kill you too. And then he fucking yeets her out of the hotel. Like he just shoves her out and runs up the stairs to his room. Police officer, who I think gives the best performance of the film, asks him if he lives here. How long? Do you have any animals or pets? They're questioning everybody. They go into the room and it's in shambles. Cop says before the murder, the tenants heard a bunch of noise coming from the room, like someone on a rampage. Asks him what's in the basket. Dwayne gets nervous and he opens it, and Dwayne quite like says nothing. Like, what the fuck? Where is Belial? The cop asks if he always leaves money lying around like that. So the money's back on the dresser. Dwayne has an alibi in Sharon. He wasn't there all day. The cop says he may come back and look around, gives him his card, and everybody leaves. Dwayne locks the door. He looks out the window. He looks under the bed. Where the hell is Belial? And then behind him, the lid of the toilet lifts up. And Belial's clawed hand like reaches out. And the physics of how this is possible blow my mind because Belial would not fit in a toilet.
No.
Not at all, unless he's like an octopus, which can fit into anything. It's a tender moment where Dwayne picks him up and towels him off and it holds him and is like, are you crazy? You could have gotten us arrested. And Dwayne does confess he was with a girl. Yes, it's the receptionist. Yes, I lied to you, but I knew you'd get mad. And, I'm not deserting you. I just want some time for myself.
I'm also disgusted that he was in the toilet.
Just in the toilet, which is, is a gross toilet.
Well, absolutely. Like, even just putting the puppet itself in a toilet, like.
So I was curious about this shot because the puppet like moves upward. It looks as though there's a hand in it coming from inside the toilet. How was that achieved?
That I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm sure it's probably like a fake toilet or something, and they probably put like a.
They did. I did read that they added plumbing pipes and stuff to these spaces, so that may actually be someone behind a flat with their arm up a fake toilet. Now that a toilet. Now that I think about it, yeah, that's probably how they pulled it off. Looks good, But Dwayne promises, this was all your idea. I'm taking care of you. I'm doing what you're asking me to, and I'm not going to desert you. We'll always be together. Now we cut to a bar, and this was filmed, as you said, at Hellfire Club, which was a gay S&M bar.
I don't know if this one was filmed at Hellfire, because I know I was listening to the commentary, and he said somewhere on Christopher Street.
Oh, really?
For this scene, I know the Hellfire Club. Was
that
actually
meatpacking?
I think so. I think the Hellfire was later on in the movie when the dad goes in the basement. That's the Hellfire.
Interesting. Then I'm curious to know what space they used for this bar scene.
That's what I want to know.
Well, everyone's having a great time, and Casey is walking around saying hi to people, socializing, and it looks like quite a party. I'd hang out there. She sees Dwayne drunk, sitting alone at the bar with his basket. I love that she just shoos someone off of a stool. She just gives them a look and they get up and leave. And she sits down next to him. She invites him to the back table for some heavy boozing. You need some company. And they're laughing hysterically. I actually really love this scene. And I think they both give, as far as probably not the best actors in the world, I love their drunk acting. So, she says, I'm dying to know what's in the basket. And he says, my brother. And then they both start laughing. And then, we're twins. And they both start laughing. And she thinks, he's pulling her leg. And, we're Siamese twins. And she says,
you don't Oriental.
God. And then so she's having fun thinking that he's joking, and then he goes too far and he's like, he's deformed, he's a freak, he looks like a squashed octopus, our mother died giving birth to us. And she's like, what?
You're freaking me out.
Fuck, you're creeping me out. And he starts to say he was attached to my right side. We were the family secret. They kept us hidden. Everybody hated us except for our aunt. And she's just staring at him agog. And he tells her, my brother, see, he likes dark places. He doesn't like to be seen, not even by me sometimes. And he talks to me up here in my head without words. Casey's uncomfortable.
This whole scene, I know, was written on a napkin in a Nathan's in Times Square.
A Nathan's hot dogs?
Yeah, so Frank Henenlotter wrote this because he was like, why the hell would somebody have their brother in a basket? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
How he explained what happened. So this really explains everything right now. And yeah, he said that he was sitting at a Nathan's in Times Square, and he wrote this whole scene down on a napkin.
I fucking love that.
And it's exactly what he wrote is how they deliver the lines.
I love it. Absolutely love it. He actually came up with a title before a movie and was like, Basket Case, what a ridiculous title for a movie. And then that's where the idea came from, spawned from that. So we cut to a rather lengthy flashback. I have to say, it really does interject with the pace that the film has, somehow magically achieved. But I also really love this flashback. Their dad is freaking out. They are in like what's it called? I don't know, a stroller, a bassinet.
Mhm.
And the dad's freaking out and saying he doesn't even want it in the house. Why did you let it be born? Talking to the doctor. It should have been it instead of her, meaning the wife. Their mother died in childbirth. He's like, I have a child and a monster. The aunt starts comforting the baby, which we can't see. Now we cut to 12 years later, and a tutor is talking to the aunt, and they're can't go to school, so let's privately tutor him. The aunt asks to see him, and so we see 12-year-old Dwayne, and he stands up, and attached to his side, sticking through a hole in his shirt, is a 12-year-old, younger faced, pimply faced Belial, with no attempt to animate his face or his movement or anything. It's just a rubber lump with teeth attached to the fucking side of him. And the tutor obviously freaks out. Now, at nighttime, Dwayne hears voices downstairs talking about having to do it now while the aunt is away. So he ducks at the, like, kind of on the landing of the stairs, and it's their father convincing doctors to separate the deformity from Dwayne. So it's doctors Lifflander, Needleman, and Cutter. And Cutter expresses this should be rather easy. They don't share any bones or organs, just flesh. Dwayne is seized and dragged into the dining room, which has been made into a makeshift, like, operating room, put on a table, and the doctors pin him down. This sequence is out of control. Needleman injects Belial like 3 or 4 times. He's saying, like, hold him down. If he's squirming, it won't work. And finally, a screaming Belial then just instantly passes out. Cutter performs the operation as blood squirts. The sound effects of
Oh,
this
when they rip him off of him.
operation, it's like, I think it feels like, when you pull apart duct tape, like, off the roll,
Yes.
that's what it is. Or like breaking like a head of lettuce or cabbage or something. It's just like the worst, and they're too loud. They're way too loud. Now we see the separation. We see Belial removed from this child's side, and it's nasty. I actually think that one looks pretty good too.
That one did look good, yeah.
It's not too close up. Dr. Cutter like kind of fucks around with a flap of skin on his torso. A goopy like piece just falls off of Belial onto the table. Dwayne wakes up, 12-year-old Dwayne wakes up to discover his side is bandaged and his brother is gone. And but he can hear his brother in his head, who's telling him, like, draws him outside to a trash can. Belial has been left in a trash bag out with the garbage, and it reaches his clawed little hand reaching out to his brother. So the father is woken up by the sounds of hammering and sawing downstairs. This is the most Home Alone way to kill someone I can possibly think of. They could have slit his throat in the night, but they had to do this. He goes down to the basement, which, like you said, this was filmed in the basement of Hellfire Club.
I believe this was, yeah.
Turns a corner, and a massive circular saw slides down a ramp that they have constructed and cuts him in half lengthwise. But I fucking love this shot.
Oh, it's great.
Oh my God. Kind of floor level shot of just his legs below the knees, and each leg just falls in a different direction.
I'm like, where did they get this giant saw? Like,
I didn't even know that, like, it's like a table saw, like the circular kind of round saws. I've never seen one that size.
no.
We cut to, they're hiding in the attic. The aunt comes upstairs and tells him it's okay, you can come out now. She explains the police are gone. No one knows who killed your dad. Dr. Lifflander said that he did an emergency operation on your brother, and he died in the process and was removed. And she tells him, I'm not going to ask what really happened. You and your brother have gone through hell. Everyone thinks Belial is dead now, and I'm here to take care of you. And the three embrace. And this is actually the first time that we hear Belial's name.
Oh, okay.
Belial is a Hebrew word meaning like unworthy or evil.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. And also appears in the Bible in place of Satan as well, like as a name for Satan.
Because I always thought, I'm like, what kind of name is Belial.
It'd be a good name for a cat. I think if I ever get another cat, it might be named Belial.
Yeah.
We see they're kind of cuddled up on a rocking chair by a fire, and she's reading an excerpt from The Tempest by Shakespeare about the monster Caliban, who actually in the play has raped a woman and is put into exile. Kind of fitting to where this fucking movie goes. And then we see a brief glimpse of Dwayne as an adult at his aunt's funeral. So now the flashback is over. We cut back to today.
So I feel like that also really kind of explains the queerness of this movie
1000%.
because it's, like like being shunned for being gay. His dad is ashamed and embarrassed. He says that it's the dirty family secret, whatever. And then he has the doctors come and try to change him,
Yeah.
make him
Yeah.
normal. So
remove it, hide it, dispose of it.
exactly. And I feel like that's such a correlation to homosexuality and then having the aunt too, like the only person that like understands and really kind of trying to nurture,
Yeah,
care for him. So I feel like that all like that's very, you can see that in a queer lens, all of that.
absolutely, without a doubt. I'm really glad that you opened my eyes to this read, because I didn't, in my research, didn't see other people talking about it, but it's there. And you look at Brain Damage, Frank's other film, and like that's a very gay movie.
All of his movies are
Yeah,
like, and there's a lot of penises
for
in his
sure,
movies.
for sure.
Full frontal male nudity in this.
We got one coming up pretty soon.
Penis monster in Bad Biology.
Yep, and
A
Brain
shower
Damage.
scene in Brain Damage.
Yep.
So there's a lot of queerness in it, and we'll get to the the naked scene in
It's
this.
a coming. Now, we're back to real time, and Casey is helping a drunk Dwayne up the stairs of the hotel with the basket. And she puts him to bed, but then he jumps out of bed and grabs the basket from the hallway, brings it and puts it on the dresser, says, I almost forgot him. And that gets Casey suspicious because he says him. And she slowly looks into the basket, but she sees that it's empty. So she goes back to her room, which is painted yellow and heavily decorated with smiley faces everywhere.
Yeah. Her smiley face nightgown.
Yep. She found a theme that she liked and went with it. Undresses, puts on that smiley face nightgown, removes her red lace panties before getting into bed. And when she closes her eyes, Belial uncovers himself from one of the pillows and starts feeling her up, and it's real icky.
Imagine being one of her Johns in a smiley face role.
I thought about that. I was like, she brings her Johns here. Like they are walking into this space to do the deed, Now she wakes up to Belial being weird, touching her fucking boobs, and starts screaming. She's actually a great screamer, I think.
I have to give her. She really knows how to scream.
She does. And I think that the scene of her being upset talking to the neighbor Josephine goes on too long, but she's doing a great job. Like she's selling it for me.
Oh yeah.
The manager, so everyone crowds around I just love that all of these tenants are so nosy that they always crowd around the doors when this shit's happening. The manager goes into the room, but he finds nothing. He tells everybody to get back to their rooms. Now Belial is seen back in his basket, and he's like fondling Casey's red panties. He stole her panties. The hotel manager, on his way down the stairs, he just screams, "This isn't a hotel, it's a nut house." Next morning, Dwayne wakes up with a hangover and he takes the basket to Dr. Cutter's office, and he discovers next to her name outside of the office that she's a veterinarian. An animal doctor was used to separate him and his conjoined brother. Sits in the waiting room amongst dogs and cats before being called into the office. And Dr. Cutter mentions, she tells him, on the phone, you said that your cat was badly cut on the side. That's going to be a big writing continuity error for me because he couldn't have called and talked about his cat if he didn't know that she was a veterinarian.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to deduct some writing points for that.
And she's so like nasty too to him.
Just like
Like,
stone
so aggressive.
cold.
Just
Yeah.
put it on the table. Like just so rude.
Like bored. Like she's being put upon to even talk. It's just a weird performance from this woman. He explains to her who he is and that
He's like, but it's not a cat.
yes, it's my brother. And she says, you should be thankful I made you normal. Now she tells him, get out of my office unless you've got something else you want cut off. Such a good line. And then she goes, now what's in the basket? She opens it and Belial jumps out screaming and attacks her face. And this is my favorite kill in the whole fucking movie.
Oh, it's great. It makes like no sense.
None whatsoever. It goes on and on and on of her just screaming with this thing attached to her face. She reaches into a drawer full of scalpels because that's where veterinarians keep all their scalpels, is an odd drawer attached to their desk. Tries to grab one but drops it, and then Belial shoves her face down into this drawer. The physics of it make absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's like if you would shove someone's face into a cake. That's kind of what he's doing to her. And Dwayne runs from the room. The receptionist runs in to see what's happening. And we just get this long, over the top, weirdly lit shot of Dr. Cutter screaming directly into the camera with like 6 scalpels just sticking directly out of her face before she collapses on the floor dead. Like she goes cross-eyed at one point while she's screaming.
Oh yeah, it's way too long, but it's a good effect. They did a good job with it. I have to say that.
It looks good. It doesn't make any sense, but
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it.
Also, another quick little tidbit: the nurses in that in the office, like the twins, those are
Yeah.
actually Frank's cousins.
No shit, really?
Yeah.
I did read one of them had a sprained wrist at the time, so in order to keep them looking identical, they just put a wrist brace on the other one as well.
Yeah.
Now Sharon shows up at Dwayne's hotel and tells him Dr. Needleman has been killed, and she's quite shaken. She's very upset, and I need to be with someone. I don't want to be alone. I want to be with you. I don't know why, especially after the way you acted the other day, but you're the only person I thought of. She won't shut the fuck up. Dwayne takes her upstairs along with the basket, and then they kiss. And Dwayne is again like swallowing her lips off of her face. It's a terrible kiss. They make out on the bed, and he starts to remove his clothes, and he actually makes it to over the clothes second base. He like touches her breast with consent. She's into it, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to watch. Take me, Dwayne, are her words. Like,
I'm like, girl, like you're distressed about your boss being killed and you're like about to get fucked. Like what? Like I don't, especially
take
about
me.
the guy. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Belial opens the basket and starts screaming. And so Dwayne pins her down to the bed. He won't let her up to see what this noise is. She's freaking the fuck out because she doesn't know A, why she's being pinned down, B, that there's a creature hanging out of a basket screaming at her. He wraps her in a sheet like a fucking bird, like how you would catch a
and
bird in the house.
throws her out the door and she hits the wall. And this crazy bitch
and falls to the ground.
Has the nerve to start knocking back on the door. Let me back in.
Yes.
Girl, leave.
Ain't worth it. He ain't worth it. His dick cannot be that big. And he's clearly poor. So don't. I don't know. He's got that big wad of cash. Dwayne tries to shove Belial back into the basket. Dwayne is upset and he's crying. And the scene just kind of ends. Like, that's it.
Is this the scene where she like runs down the stairs?
Yes.
And then she just screams at the top of her lungs, Dwayne!
And then runs.
Just leaves.
Yeah. It's such an uncomfortable, it's just a weird shot.
No sense.
None.
And it's
whatsoever.
Just so bizarre. And like, why? Why?
Like
and her wig is crooked.
Yeah. It's like pulled too far down. Yeah. So that night, Belial sneaks out of the basket while Dwayne is sleeping. We get more of this stop motion animation of him moving independently, and his eyes begin to glow red, which we have not seen before. Looks pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
I do like that, yeah.
I'm
And then
into
the
it.
light in, they have like the blue light in.
Yep.
It's a cool scene.
It's a vibe. It works for me. He reaches for Dwayne's face as he sleeps and he kind of caresses one of his curls. I think it's an interesting, tender moment. And then he starts looking out the window with his eyes glowing red, leaps up on the windowsill and just screams at the camera. We cut to Dwayne's dream, and he is running through the streets of New York completely naked, a 1982 bush for days. This was
We love a
before
bush.
manscaping. I do love a bush, honestly. I'm into it. These nude running shots were like a last minute idea, and they did not have clearance. They cleaned the streets as best as they possibly could so that he wouldn't run and like step on any broken glass or anything. It was freezing cold, so they would have him in a heated van. They would call action. He would get out and run down the street. And then when he ran out of frame, there would be a heated van waiting for him to jump into.
I'm disgusted that he ran through Manhattan. I forget what part of Manhattan this was. Maybe it was Tribeca. But like still, I would never run barefoot through Manhattan.
I'm grossed out when people wear sandals in New York. Like it's
Like
not a sandal
what?
city.
No.
No.
If you're gonna run in the streets, at least like put those like things on like the bottom of your feet.
Yeah.
Where your feet are just not touching the ground. I mean, it's like, disgusting. The scene also makes absolutely no sense. It was just a weird scene that they threw in, but it's like also like why like I mean, we don't need a reason why, but it's like I'm just saying there's a lot of Frank's movies have a lot of, you know, questionable scenes.
For sure, without a doubt. This being one of them.
Oh, absolutely.
So in this dream, he runs to Sharon's apartment and finds himself inside of it. Also, her apartment is fucking great. It's huge. She's got plants everywhere. Like she's got a good space going on.
Yeah, how did she get this? Like
I don't know.
I don't know.
She's in bed asleep as Dwayne. It's a point of view shot, so we don't see him. We see what he's seeing, and he caresses his face weirdly, and then her foot and her ankle up the leg, and then he uncovers her sheets and her breasts, and he just pokes one like it's a button.
So bizarre. Like just pokes her nipple, like just
and then caresses it, and then squeezes it. This poor actress who's laying on her back pretending to be asleep while someone just weirdly touches her boobs.
You thought it was hilarious. Like in real life she could not stop laughing.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad it was at least that
funny to her.
Yeah. He appears to climb on top of her, and the camera pushes like forward and back as though it's like a sexual motion, still point of view. And then Dwayne wakes up in a sweat and he sees that Belial is gone, and he realized that he was dreaming what Belial is seeing. So him running naked through the city was like his psychic connection to Belial leaving the apartment and heading towards Sharon's place. Sharon, which I only picked up on the second time I watched it this week, Sharon wakes up and screams and sees Belial's red glowing eyes on top of her, and he kills her.
Does he rape her? Or he's like fucking her, right?
Let's talk about this, right? Because Dwayne busts into her apartment and discovers Belial on top of her naked corpse, and Belial is sitting on her crotch, gyrating forward and back, and there's blood everywhere, like blood all over her crotch, blood all over him, like the bottom of him. What the fuck, dude? So this is the scene where I'm having fun watching this movie and I'm into it and it's gross and sick and weird, and then this happens and I'm just like, no, come on. Like, this is a 5-second sequence that I really didn't need to see.
I think it just adds to like the sleaziness. It just like it makes it that just more like gross.
1000%. It's the rape of a dead woman. Because here's the thing: the back and forth camera movement when Dwayne is dreaming could have been enough to insinuate that that's what Belial had done to her. Also, hold on a second. Let's talk about the mechanics of Belial's physical composition, because Belial eats, first off, eats only meat. Second off, where does all of it's got to go somewhere? Does Belial have an anus? And does Belial have genitals?
Clearly not. Well, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? The bottom is flat.
And we don't see it. We never see it. I don't know. And frankly, I don't think I want to know.
Exactly.
I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it for what it is. So Dwayne sees this, grabs Belial, is very upset. There's a moment where he just kind of stops and looks at her dead body and then runs down the stairs. He's got Belial in a basket now, and he's wrestling with the basket, running up the stairs of his hotel, screaming, "No, she was good. Why? Like, I'll never let you out." Just because I do like the line, "Just because you can't doesn't mean I shouldn't."
Yeah.
First girl I ever kissed, and you destroy her. And the neighbors are, of course, nosy. You know what? It's not even nosiness. You want to know what the hell's going on in the place where you're sleeping, right?
Yeah.
They bust in on him in his room as Belial just sticks his head out of the basket and starts screaming. And then everyone starts screaming because they see Belial for the first time. Belial grabs Dwayne by the balls and lifts him up into the air. It looks somehow cool.
I mean, you can totally see like the hook.
Yes.
Him.
Yes.
It looked like a fishing pole or something, and he's
just hanging.
Yeah.
By the balls. He is dropped, and then Belial attacks his face, and they both crash through the window. And Belial is hanging from one hand from the Hotel Broslin sign, the red neon sign, while he holds Dwayne below him by the throat, strangling him. And a pack of hookers down on the street see it, and a crowd starts to gather around. And Dwayne is choked to death. And Belial, who's making weird grunting noises, loses his grip on the neon sign. They both fall down to the ground. Blood kind of squirts out of Belial's mouth, and the crowd gathers around, shocked and upset. We have a down shot directly down at them on the street. And I only noticed this for the first time this week, too. Dwayne is on his stomach, dead, and Belial is on his right side, dead, and it looks as though they're attached again.
Yeah.
Credits begin to roll, and that's the end of Basket Case.
I do love that ending though. Like it's such a nice, that whole scene is great. I mean, it's clearly like fake.
For sure.
That like you see the backdrop, it looks like such a fake backdrop.
Yeah.
He's hanging from the sign. But it's a really great shot. And I'm also curious too, like, were those real hookers? And like, is that how they dressed in like 1982?
I am
These are things
certain
that I think about.
anyone we saw on the street in this movie was not was not a part of this movie. It was not hired for casting or anything. They were just hanging out. It's a fucking bizarre, excellent film. You know what? We're just gonna get right into it. Here on Rick or Treat Horrorcast, there's a rating system. A movie is either a trick, which means it's all right. It's a treat, which means you love it, or it is a smell my feet, which means it sucks. Coma.
This is 100% a treat.
Fuck yeah. Could not agree more. This treat, king size candy bar.
Yeah.
People love this movie and people hate it, but it's really got
Hates it.
well, you know, I did listen to a couple of other podcasts talking about it this week, and there were some even horror fans like ragging on this movie. It's not for everybody, but it's got this charm. It captures New York in 1982 so well.
And that's why like someone like MoMA would like this huge, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
For MoMA to preserve this movie, and it's because it is such a time capsule of New York in the 80s. Like it truly is. And I feel like if it was filmed somewhere else, it wouldn't have as much of a charm to it. You know,
Agreed.
the city is another character.
Okay, Sex in the City. No, you're totally right about that. You know, this movie, for as bizarre and gross and silly and campy as it is, it has this like underlying emotional effect too. That
Yeah.
I don't even know if there was intention there, but it it leaves you feeling something. You might not know what it is. Are you sad that they die? Probably not. It couldn't have ended any other possible way. But like, you're given just enough of Dwayne caring for Belial and what they went through, right?
Yeah.
To be left with a little bit of like an empty feeling, or a little bit of like, damn.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so. Anyway.
I don't know. I love this movie. I love Frank's work.
Yeah.
And I think also too, like, I'm a Long Island girl. Frank is from Long Island as well.
Nice.
He used to live in Limbrook, which
Okay.
is like right close by to where I live. So I don't know. I guess I feel somewhat of a connection to.
I dig that.
Yeah.
I like that. Oh, it should also be mentioned Dwayne holding the basket makes an appearance in Brain Damage, like a
He does.
cameo, like
Yeah.
just on the street. It's pretty funny. Like, the first, I saw Brain Damage this year for the first time, and I
Really.
didn't realize that they were both directed by the same person. So when I saw Dwayne with a fucking basket, it kind of blew my mind. But anyway, all right. Listen, Coma, so glad you were here. How can my listeners stalk you?
Well, you can find me on all social media platforms under Coma White NYC. I'm everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, all the above. And if people want to support me, I have merch available. So you could purchase that on comawhitenyc.bigcartel.com.
You have the
Or go
coolest t-shirts. I have one. I cut the
Thank
sleeves
you.
off.
Thank you. So people could buy one, or you could buy from Big Cartel, or message me, or buy one at a gig. And, come find me at a rock bar hosting horror trivia every month.
Hell yeah, you're gonna find me there too. I can't wait. Yours is
Yes.
coming up in I guess a few days after this launches. And you can follow the podcast at Rick or Treat Pod on all platforms. YouTube has really taken off. Rick or Treat Horrorcast. You have to type that whole thing in. But I have like 15 and 1600 subscribers now.
Wow, that's amazing.
I have a couple episodes that have like 7,000 views. Something's happening and I'm not mad, but I am going to give credit to my social media manager, Stanley Martin, who's fucking crushing it over there. And I'm so grateful. And if you want to send me a little treat, my Venmo is at Rick or Treat. Show takes a lot of work, and wouldn't mind a little something, something. And that's the show. That's what we have for you. Coma, thank you very, very much. And I can't wait to have you back.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, baby. We'll see y'all later, spookies.
Bye.
Thanks for coming Rick or Treating. It'd be a real scream if you'd take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. The show's spooky intro and outro music is a cover of Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre, with orchestrations composed and performed by Lestat von Monlicht. My website, rickortreat.com, is designed and maintained by Evelyn DeVere. The show's social media content is created by my evil minion and social media manager, Stanley Martin. The Rick or Treat logo was designed by Philip Romano. Contact information and links to these artists can be found in the episode description. Check them out, they're frighteningly talented. Rick or Treat Horrorcast is independently produced by me, Ricky J. Duarte, of Rick or Treat Productions. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you didn't, well, they're coming to get you, listener.